The rain tapped softly against the window of my small apartment, a steady rhythm that matched the ache in my chest. I sat in my old armchair, the one with the frayed armrests, cradling Tinker in my lap. His soft tabby fur was still damp from the vet's antiseptic wash, and his left leg was wrapped in a tiny cast. He purred faintly, a sound that used to fill this quiet space with warmth, but now felt like a fragile thread holding us together. At 78, I'd lived through enough loss to know that pain doesn't always shout at whispers, and it lingers. Tinker wasn't just a cat. He was my companion, my confidant in a world that had grown too loud and too fast. After my husband, George, passed 5 years ago, the silence in this apartment had been deafening. I'd wander the rooms, touching the edges of his old books, his favorite mug, trying to hold on to something that felt alive. Then came Tinker, a scrappy little kitten I found shivering in an alley behind the bakery. He'd looked up at me with those wide green eyes, and I knew we'd saved each other. For 3 years, he'd been my shadow, curling up beside me during late-night radio shows, batting at the yarn I used for knitting, filling the emptiness with his gentle presence. That morning, though, everything changed. My niece, Emily, had come over with her mother, my younger sister, Clara. Emily was 9, all boundless energy and curiosity, her dark curls bouncing as she darted around my apartment. Clara had called it a family visit, but I knew better. She'd been dropping hints for months about me moving to a nursing home, saying things like, "It's safer, Ruth. You're not getting any younger." I'd brush it off, but the visits always left me uneasy, like I was being measured for a life I didn't want. Emily had been fascinated by Tinker from the moment she arrived. "Aunt Ruth, can I play with him?" she'd asked, her voice bright. I'd smiled, told her to be gentle, and handed her one of Tinker's feather toys. For a while, it was fine giggles, the soft thump of Tinker's paws chasing the toy across the rug. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when I heard the balcony door slide open. Clara was on her phone, distracted, as usual. I didn't think much of it until Emily's voice rang out, sharp and excited. "Look, Mommy, Tinker's gonna fly." The words hit me like a punch. I dropped the teapot, the ceramic shattering on the floor, and ran to the balcony. There was Emily, leaning over the railing, holding Tinker by his scruff, his little body dangling 13 feet above the concrete courtyard below. My heart stopped. "Emily, no," I screamed, lunging forward. But it was too late. Her small hands let go, and Tinker fell, a blur of fur plummeting to the ground. I don't remember running down the stairs. I don't remember the neighbors' gasps or the way my knees buckled when I saw him, limp and mewling on the pavement. All I remember is scooping him up, his body warm but so still, and the way Emily stood frozen on the balcony, her eyes wide with shock. Clara was behind her, finally off her phone, stammering apologies. She didn't mean it. "Ruth, she's just a kid." The vet said Tinker was lucky. A fractured leg, some bruising, but he'd live. I sat in the waiting room, clutching my purse, trying to drown out Clara's voice in my head. "Let it go, Ruth. Kids make mistakes. Let it go." How could I? Tinker wasn't just a pet, was my family, my anchor. And Emily, sweet as she was, had nearly taken him from me. Worse, Clara didn't seem to care. She'd always been like that, brushing off anything that didn't fit her neat little world. But this wasn't a spilled glass of milk or a broken toy. This was my heart, broken on that concrete. Back in my apartment, I stroked Tinker's fur, my hands trembling. The rain outside grew heavier, blurring the world beyond the window. I thought about family, how it's supposed to hold you up, not tear you down. Clara, and Emily were my only living relatives. But their visit had left me feeling more alone than ever. I'd spent years forgiving Clara's dismissals, her impatience with my old-fashioned ways. But this was different. This was a line crossed, a trust shattered. I looked at Tinker, his green eyes half closed, trusting me even now. Something shifted inside me, a quiet resolve. I'd spent too long letting things go: George's death, my sister's judgment, the slow erosion of my independence. Maybe it was time to stop. Maybe it was time to let them go. The next morning, the apartment felt colder, though the rain had stopped. Tinker slept in his little bed by the heater, his breathing steady but weak. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned from staring at the ceiling all night, replaying the moment Tinker fell. Emily's face haunted Meadow's wide, innocent eyes, not malicious but reckless, unthinking. And Clara's voice, so quick to dismiss, "She's just a kid." As if that erased the pain. I made coffee, the familiar ritual grounding me, and sat at the kitchen table with my phone. Clara had texted, "Ruth, I'm so sorry about yesterday. Emily feels awful. Can we talk?" I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to call, to scream, to demand she understand what she'd allowed to happen. But another part, the part that had carried me through decades of loss, whispered to stay calm, to think. Clara had always been the golden child, 10 years my junior, charming and confident where I was quiet and steady. Growing up, I'd been the one to clean up her messes, literal and otherwise. When she got pregnant with Emily at 19, I was the one who helped her through it. No questions asked. When her marriage fell apart, I opened my home to her and Emily, cooked the meals, listened to her cry. I never asked for thanks, but I'd hoped for respect. Yesterday, that hope crumbled. The phone rang, jarring me. Clara's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through, strained but cheerful. "Ruth, it's me. Emily's been crying all morning. She wants to apologize. Can we come by? We'll bring cookies or something. Let's just move past this. Move past this." The words stung, like she thought a plate of cookies could stitch up the wound in my heart. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the courtyard below. The spot where Tinker landed was still there, a faint scuff on the pavement. I thought about Emily, how she'd always been a whirlwind, tearing through my orderly life with sticky fingers and loud laughter. I loved her, but love didn't mean excusing everything. And Clara, her refusal to see the gravity of it, to teach Emily consequences, felt like a betrayal. By noon, I'd made up my mind. I called Clara back, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "I need some time," I said. "Don't come by for a while." There was a long pause. Then her voice, sharp with disbelief, "Ruth, you can't be serious. She's 9. You're blowing this out of proportion." I hung up before she could say more. My hands shook, but I felt a strange relief, like I'd finally set down a weight I'd carried too long. That afternoon, I took Tinker to the vet for a checkup. The waiting room was quiet, just me and an old man with a parakeet in a cage. The vet, a kind young woman named Dr. Patel, checked Tinker's cast and gave me a gentle smile. "He's a fighter," she said. "And so are you, Ruth." Her words caught me off guard, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. Back home, I sat with Tinker, thinking about family. I'd always believed blood tied you together, no matter what. But Clara's dismissal, her refusal to hold Emily accountable, made me question that. Maybe family wasn't just about shared history, it was about mutual respect, about showing up when it mattered. I'd spent years being the good sister, the one who forgave, who smoothed things over. But for what? To be told to let go of something that broke my heart. I opened my journal, a habit I'd kept since George died, and started writing. The words poured out anger, grief, but also clarity. I wrote about Tinker, about how he'd given me purpose when I thought I'd lost it. I wrote about Clara, about the years I'd spent excusing her selfishness. And I wrote about Emily, how I wanted to forgive her but couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew she understood. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this gone at Tinker's pain. Not my own. But I also wouldn't let it consume me. I'd protect what mattered, my peace. My home. My little cat who trusted me to keep him safe. And if that meant drawing a line with Clara and Emily, so be it. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between me and Clara grew heavy. She'd stopped texting after a few half-hearted attempts, each one laced with that same breezy tone. Let's not make this a big deal. Ruth. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on Tinker, who was healing slowly but surely. His cast came off after 2 weeks, and though he limped, he started chasing his feather toy again, his green eyes bright with defiance. Watching him recover felt like a small victory, a reminder that broken things could mend if you gave them time and care. My apartment became my sanctuary again, but it was different now. The quiet wasn't just absence. It was a choice. I'd always been the one to keep the family together, to host dinners, to call on birthdays. But now, I let the phone sit untouched, let the invitations go unanswered. It wasn't anger. Exactly, it was exhaustion. I was tired of being the one who always bent, who always forgave. One afternoon, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was in Emily's handwriting, the letters wobbly but earnest. Dear Aunt Ruth, I'm so sorry I hurt Tinker. I didn't know he'd get hurt. I love him. Please don't hate me. There was a drawing at the bottom, a stick figure cat with a bandage on its leg, next to a stick figure girl with tears streaming down her face. My throat tightened. I wanted to scoop Emily up, tell her I didn't hate her. But I couldn't ignore the ache in my chest, the memory of Tinker's limp body. I tucked the letter into my journal, unsure what to do with it. That evening, I called my friend Margaret, the only person I'd told about the incident. She was 82, sharp as a tack, with a laugh that could light up a room. Over tea at her place, I poured out the story: Emily's recklessness, Clara's dismissal, my own tangled feelings. Margaret listened, her eyes soft but steady. Ruth, she said, you've spent your whole life taking care of others. Maybe it's time to take care of you. Her words stayed with me as I walked home under the streetlights. I thought about what taking care of me meant. For so long, I defined myself by my roles: wife, sister, aunt. But George was gone, and Clara and Emily had shown me how little they valued what mattered to me. Maybe taking care of myself meant letting go of the guilt, the need to fix everything. Maybe it meant choosing who deserved a place in my life. The next day, I started small. I rearranged my apartment, moving the armchair to face the window so I could watch the sunrise with Tinker. I bought a new knitting pattern, something intricate to challenge myself. I even signed up for a pottery class at the community center, something I'd always wanted to try but never had the courage. Each step felt like a reclamation, a way of saying, this is my life, and it's enough. But the letter from Emily kept tugging at me. I didn't hate her, I couldn't. She was a child, caught up in a moment of thoughtlessness. But Clara was the adult, the one who should have taught her better, who should have seen my pain instead of brushing it aside. I decided to write back to Emily, choosing my words carefully. Dear Emily, I know you didn't mean to hurt Tinker. I'm not angry, but I'm hurt, and I need time. I hope you understand. I didn't mention Clara. That was a conversation for another day. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a weight lift. Not all the way, but enough to breathe a little easier. Tinker hopped onto the table, nudging my hand with his head. I scratched behind his ears, smiling as he purred. "We're okay, aren't we?" I whispered. He blinked at me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was finding my footing again, not as a sister or an aunt, but as Ruth, the woman who'd survived loss before and would do it again. The pottery class became my refuge. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd walk to the community center, my hands dusted with clay by the end of each session. There was something grounding about shaping the wet earth, coaxing it into bowls and mugs that held my focus, my care. The other students, mostly retirees like me, with a few younger faces, became a quiet kind of community. We didn't talk much about our lives, but we shared smiles, tips on glazing, the occasional laugh when a pot collapsed on the wheel. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere that wasn't defined by family. Tinker was nearly back to his old self, though he was more cautious now, avoiding the balcony door. I'd watch him nap in a patch of sunlight, his tail twitching, and feel a surge of gratitude. He'd survived, and so had I. But the rift with Clara and Emily lingered like a bruise. Clara had sent one more text. "Ruth, you're being unfair." Emily's heartbroken. I didn't respond. Unfair. I'd spent my life being fair, swallowing my hurt to keep the peace. This time, I chose myself. One evening, as I was shaping a small vase in class, my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Clara, her voice tight. "Ruth, I get that you're upset, but shutting us out, that's cruel. Emily's been asking for you. I'm coming over tomorrow, and we're going to talk." I froze, the clay slipping under my fingers. The word cruel echoed in my mind. Was I cruel? All I'd done was ask for space, for time to heal. But Clara's tone made it clear. She expected me to bend again, to open my door and my heart as if nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with Tinker, my journal open, trying to untangle my thoughts. I wrote about Clara's accusation, about the guilt it stirred. I loved Emily, and I missed her laughter, her chaotic energy. But I couldn't shake the image of Tinker falling, or Clara's refusal to take it seriously. I realized then that this wasn't just about the incident, it was about years of being dismissed, of being the reliable one who never pushed back. I didn't want to be cruel, but I also didn't want to be invisible. The next morning, Clara showed up as promised, Emily in tow. I opened the door, my heart pounding. Emily's eyes were red, her small hands clutching a stuffed cat that looked like Tinker. Clara's face was set, her arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I gestured to the couch, but I stayed standing. Tinker curled up in his bed nearby. Emily spoke first, her voice small. "Aunt Ruth, I'm really sorry. I didn't know Tinker would get hurt. I just thought he'd be okay." Her lip trembled, and my heart ached. I knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "I know you didn't mean it, sweetheart," I said softly. "But what you did scared me, and it hurt Tinker. I needed time to think." She nodded, tears spilling over. Clara cut in, her voice sharp. "Ruth, this has gone on long enough. You're punishing her for a mistake. She's a child." I stood, meeting her gaze. "And you're her mother," I said, my voice steady. "You should have been watching her. You should have taught her that actions have consequences. Instead, you told me to let it go, like my feelings don't matter." The room went quiet. Clara's face flushed, but she didn't speak. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. I took a breath, the words I'd held back for years spilling out. "I've always been there for you, Clara. Always." But I'm not just your sister. I'm a person, and I'm tired of being the one who has to forgive everything." Emily sniffled, and I softened, touching her shoulder. "I love you, Emily. This isn't about you being bad. It's about learning." I looked at Clara, and it's about respect. Clara opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she didn't have an answer. They left soon after, Emily hugging me tightly, Clara silent. As the door closed, I felt both heavy and light, grieving the distance, but free in a way I hadn't been before. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of peace and unease. Clara didn't call, and I didn't reach out. Emily sent another letter, this one with a drawing of me and Tinker, both of us smiling. "I'm learning to be careful," she wrote. I smiled, taping it to the fridge. I wanted to believe her, but I wasn't ready to let them back in fully. Not yet. My life took on a new rhythm. Pottery class, morning walks with Margaret, evenings with Tinker and the radio. I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, cleaning cages and petting nervous cats. It felt good to give something back, to be around creatures who understood survival. One day, I brought home a tiny ceramic bowl I'd made, glazed in a soft green that matched Tinker's eyes. I filled it with his treats, and he batted at it, delighted. It was a small thing, but it felt like a triumph. Margaret noticed the change in me. "You're standing taller, Ruth," she said one day over coffee. "Like you've remembered who you are." I laughed, but she was right. I'd spent so long defining myself by what I did for others' wife, sister, and that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be Ruth. Now, I was rediscovering her, one small choice at a time. But the past has a way of creeping back. One evening, I got a call from Clara. Her voice was different, quieter, less certain. "Ruth, can we meet?" "Just me." I owe you an apology." I hesitated, my instinct to say yes warring with the part of me that wanted to protect my newfound peace. "Okay," I said finally. "Tomorrow, at the cafe on Elm Street." We met at noon, the cafe bustling with chatter. Clara looked tired. Her usual polish faded. She stirred her coffee, avoiding my eyes. "I've been thinking about what you said," she started. "About respect. About how I handled things with Emily." She paused, her fingers tightening around her mug. "You're right. I should have been watching her. I should have taken it seriously. I didn't want to believe she could do something like that." I listened, waiting. This was new Clara admitting fault. "I've been a lousy sister," she went on. "I leaned on you so much, and I never thought about what it cost you. I'm sorry, Ruth. For Tinker. For everything." Her eyes met mine, and I saw something I hadn't in years: vulnerability. I took a breath, choosing my words. "I appreciate that, Clara. But it's not just about Tinker. It's about years of feeling like I don't matter. I can't keep being the one who fixes everything." She nodded, tears brimming. "I know," she said. "I want to do better. For you. For Emily." We talked for an hour, not just about the incident, but about user childhood, our losses, the ways we drifted apart. It wasn't a fix. Not entirely. But it was a start. When we parted, she hugged me, and I let her. It felt tentative, like a bridge being rebuilt, one plank at a time. Back home, I sat with Tinker, thinking about forgiveness. It wasn't a switch you flipped. It was a process, layered and slow. I could forgive Emily. She was learning, growing. Clara was harder, but her apology had cracked open a door I thought was locked. I didn't know if we'd ever be the sisters we once were, but I was willing to try, one step at a time. As I scratched Tinker's chin, I realized something else. I'd let go of the need to be everyone's anchor. I could love my family, but I didn't have to carry them. My life me small, quiet, beautiful life with Tinker and my pottery and my new friends was enough. And that was a kind of freedom I hadn't known I could claim. Spring arrived, soft and tentative, like a promise kept. Tinker was back to his old tricks, leaping onto the windowsill to watch the birds, his limp barely noticeable. My apartment was filled with small treasures, now ceramic bowls and vases, each one a testament to my hands, my time. The fridge was covered in Emily's drawings, each one a step toward healing. Clara and I were talking again. Not every day, but enough. Our conversations were careful, like we were learning each other anew. One Saturday, Clara asked if Emily could visit. Just her, she said. I think it'd be good for both of you. I agreed, nervous but hopeful. When Emily arrived, she was quieter than usual, her usual bounce tempered by a shy smile. She held a small gift bag, her fingers fidgeting. I made something for you and Tinker, she said, pulling out a handmade collar woven with bright blue thread. I learned it at school. It's to say sorry. Again. I knelt down, taking the collar. It was clumsy, imperfect, but it was hers, and it was sincere. It's beautiful, Emily, I said, my voice catching. I fastened it around Tinker's neck, and he shook his head, then purred, rubbing against her leg. She giggled, and for a moment, it felt like before the balcony, before the hurt. We spent the afternoon together, playing with Tinker, baking cookies, talking about small things school, her new art class, the stray cat she'd seen at the park. I watched her closely, seeing not just the reckless child but the girl who was trying to understand, to grow. When Clara picked her up, Emily hugged me tight. I'll be careful, Aunt Ruth, she whispered. I promise. I believed her. After they left, I sat with Tinker, the apartment glowing with late afternoon light. I thought about family, not the one you're born into, but the one you choose to keep. Clara and I were still finding our way, but her apology had been a bridge, and Emily's effort was a step across it. I didn't know if we'd ever be as close as we once were, but I was okay with that. Love didn't mean erasing boundaries. It meant respecting them. I opened my journal, writing about the day, about the collar, about the way Emily's eyes lit up when Tinker purred. I wrote about Clara, about the work we were both doing to rebuild. And I wrote about myself, how I'd learned to stand up, to say no, to choose my own peace. It wasn't easy, letting go of the role I'd played for so long. But it was worth it. Margaret invited me to a pottery exhibition the next week, and I brought one of my vases, small, sturdy thing with a swirl of blue and green. When it sold, the buyer, a young woman with kind eyes, asked me about it. I told her about Tinker, about how his recovery inspired the colors. She smiled, saying, "It's got a story, doesn't it?" I nodded, my heart full. Everything did. That night, I sat by the window with Tinker, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold. The world felt big, but my corner of it felt just right. I'd lost things, people, trust, pieces of myself, but I'd found something too, the strength to let go of what didn't serve me, and the courage to hold on to what did. Tinker curled closer, his purr a steady hum, and I knew we'd be okay. We'd already survived the fall.